This is the story of the Carter brothers. The Carter brothers are a legendary part of New Orleans' rich and eerie history, often linked to the city's association with vampires and supernatural lore. The tale of the Carter brothers, John and Wayne, dates back to the early 1930s. While it remains unclear whether the story is based on actual events or is a fabrication rooted in local legend, it is one of the most chilling accounts associated with the Crescent City. According to the legend, the Carter brothers were seemingly ordinary men who lived in a modest apartment in the French Quarter. They were described as quiet and unassuming, living a fairly typical life for the time. However, behind this facade, something far more sinister was allegedly taking place. The story begins with a young woman, disheveled and panicked, escaping from the Carter brothers' apartment. She fled through the streets of the French Quarter until she reached a police officer and told her horrifying tale. The woman claimed that she had been held captive by the Carter brothers, who had allegedly had over a dozen other victims restrained in their home. But this wasn't just an account of abduction or serial killings. What set this story apart was the claim that the Carter brothers were not human. According to this woman, they were vampires. The woman explained that the brothers would come home each night and feed on the blood of their captives. She had witnessed them slice their victims' wrists, drink their blood, and keep them alive just long enough to sustain themselves. She claimed that, like herself, most of the other captives were weak and on the brink of death from the loss of blood, waiting for their inevitable fate. Alarmed by the woman's report, the police rushed to the Carter brothers' apartment. What they found there only added to the mystery. Inside, they discovered several other captives in a similar state to the young woman, malnourished, pale, and close to death with wounds on their wrists. The Carter brothers were arrested, and authorities began to investigate the claims of vampirism more seriously. But the strangeness didn't end there. After the brothers were apprehended, the story takes a darker, more supernatural turn. The Carter brothers were quickly put on trial and convicted for their heinous crimes, though the official narrative made no mention of vampirism. They were sentenced to death by execution, which was carried out swiftly. However, the legend claims that after their execution, the brothers' bodies were not buried in the usual way. They were allegedly interred in a special mausoleum in one of New Orleans' famous cemeteries. Years later, when family members came to place another relative in the mausoleum, the bodies of John and Wayne Carter were said to be missing. The discovery gave rise to rumors that the brothers had somehow risen from the dead, further feeding into the story of their vampiric nature. Locals claimed that the Carter brothers were seen wandering the streets of New Orleans after their deaths. There have been reports over the years of shadowy figures matching their descriptions being spotted in the French Quarter, particularly around the area where they had lived. These sightings helped cement their place in the New York City's folklore as undead figures eternally tied to the vampire myths of New Orleans.
Wow.
Dun, dun, dun.
When were the latest reports of them being around? Do you know?
I don't know. Let me see. Latest reports of Carter Brothers, New Orleans. This one from September 9th, 2024. Or maybe
What was it, the article?
That's just
or...
when the post was made.
Yeah, maybe it was when the post was made.
This is a TikTok that says Carter Brothers New Orleans sighting.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know when the last sighting was, but
I mean, it's hard to know either way what they would really look like or whatnot. But that's funny.
Yeah, there's a guy who made a YouTube video. I saw the Carter Brothers in New Orleans. So maybe that was the last sighting 2 years ago. It says on YouTube. some guy that was hanging out. He's just like filming a vlog with the Carter brothers, and the Carter brothers.
Yeah.
He's like, "Yo, do the vampire thing," and they're like.